Uh-oh. Well, we gotta be here.
Good
How you
evening.
doing?
I'm on there.
Grab a test, please.
Hi, good evening.
Got the test.
Yes.
Man, I wasn't ready for a test
We got a
today.
teacher on tonight.
We won't take away your birthday, whatever your answers are. You still get your birthday back.
Okay.
All right,
Is everyone
let's
ready?
get started. You ready?
You ready?
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Northwest Community Policing Council.
Could you turn your speaker off there?
It's off.
Well, your speaker's getting to you.
It's a, go ahead and continue. We'll
I'm
figure-
muted.
Okay.
All right. All right, continue.
Okay.
Maybe it's my phone. It's off. Okay, sorry about that. We are being recorded. I'd like to call the meeting to order tonight and welcome. This is our July 20th meeting. First, I would like to entertain motion to approve the minutes of last month's meeting. Spit it out.
Motion.
We have a motion from Jeff in a second. I need Rachel or Jackie.
You can start.
I second. Okay, Jill seconds it. All in favor of approving the minutes? A couple of things around. We have a change in leadership. Marcella has asked to step down to vice chair, and Jeff has asked to lead the leadership team. And I volunteered to be chair.
Can you just turn that off?
Turn what on?
Just
Feedback.
push, take the volume all the way down so it won't come out. Yeah, that's right.
We're trying to make it not.
All right, now we're good.
Hi, Tommy.
Can everybody out there hear okay now?
So if everybody is all right with that slate, or if someone else is interested in being chair, please let us know now, or we're gonna vote. Any feedback? Marcella is not here tonight. She has a family emergency, and she's asked to step down to vice chair, and Jeff is asked to be a member of large. And so
She's
I
gonna be
was
the
asked
chair.
to be chair,
Fine with me.
Yeah.
and Tommy says, don't look at me.
I'll be your vice chair if you want. So there's somebody here if you don't show up.
Okay. So all in favor of the changes in officers, please say yay.
Hey,
Yes.
Yay.
Thank you. Rachel, are you there? She did something in chat.
I think we have a quorum.
Okay, we have a quorum. So those are the changes. And thank you for allowing me to lead the meetings going forward. Our next agenda item is we have two new members I'd like to introduce at the beginning so that they can be invited into the room. The first one is Paul D. Mondragon, and he's an active board member of the Trace Volcanis Neighborhood Association, and he is also a board member of the Petroglyph Homeowners Association and serves as president in that role. He served on boards for Gold Apple Foundation of New Mexico and on an advisory board for the PB&J, Peanut Butter and Jelly Fathers Building Futures Program, among a number of other things. Are you here tonight, Paul?
Yeah, that's
Oh, that's
Ah,
you.
okay.
Welcome, Paul's here in person. Fantastic. Welcome. Is there anything else you would like to say to the group? You're on camera too.
Oh,
Yeah. By the way,
Thank
this is the
everybody.
camera and a microphone.
so we should watch what we say.
And you're being recorded. Me, I don't care.
I don't know if you guys can see me.
Okay.
Okay, so Paul I'd like to entertain a motion to accept Paul to the
I make a
CBC.
motion that we accept Paul.
In a
Yeah,
second,
Paul accepted.
thank you.
Yeah,
All in
second.
favor, say aye.
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 Fantastic. Our second member is here on the Zoom, and his name is Edward G. Butner, Lieutenant Colonel USAF, retired. So I guess we have to call him Lieutenant Colonel.
Well, retired.
No, not if you're retired. Okay. So he spent 26 years in the U.S. Air Force, lived in a small and large urban and suburban communities across the United States, also lived in Germany for 6 years and Turkey for a year. Highlights of his military career were nuclear munitions team leader on an air combat command and strategic air command inspector general teams, which sounds way above my pay grade. He's commander of security police squadron, providing security of missile sites in Wyoming, Colorado, and Nebraska, and commander of munitions maintenance squadrons in Germany. Anything else, Ed, that you would like to say to the group? Unmute yourself first, please.
Well, I was a certified public accountant for 20 years, and I currently reside out here at Del Webb at Muirhaven, which is, I guess, west side. And I don't know, I'm an AARP smart driver instructor, and I do taxes for AARP. So I completed the CPA course. That's the Citizens Police Academy, class 56 back in 21, June of 21. So I've had an interest in policing for a while and improving what I see and hear, both locally and across the country. And that's why I think I put in my application for the oversight board back in 2019, and instead of hearing from them, I heard from Officer Anna at the police academy, and she invited me to come and take the class, and I did, and it was interesting, and but I look forward to continuing serving the community, and especially in the area of public safety.
Fantastic. So I'll entertain a motion to accept Edward to the board. Do you want to be Edward or Ed? Do you have a preference?
I motion he be accepted. It's Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie. In a second, please.
I
Second.
second it.
We've got two. All in favor, say
Aye.
aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Welcome both of you to our panel. That makes us full, I think. Yeah,
7 members.
so, yay. We might be the only CPC that's completely
We are the
full.
only CPC with 11 members.
Yeah, fantastic. Next on the agenda is Lieutenant David Saladin for an update. And Amy, Lieutenant Amy.
Can everyone hear me on the board?
Yes.
Perfect. So I went and I pulled the numbers for June, and I wanted to tell you that we currently have 49 officers patrolling the streets of the Northwest. That's not to include detectives, sergeants, lieutenants, and myself. And for the month of June, they made 33 felony arrests, 35 misdemeanor arrests, cleared over 50 warrants, issued almost 300 traffic citations, recovered 11 stolen vehicles, took 9 guns off the street, completed 782 police reports, and took over 4,000 calls for service. They also had almost 20 DWI arrests, which put Northwest at #1 for that category, right? For the city for that month. And what I'm most proud of out of this, that's over 5,000 citizen contacts that these officers had. For the month of June, we had 5 uses of force. So we're averaging 1 use of force per 1,000 contacts with citizens. And none of those were level 3 uses of force, which means they did not cause serious injury. 2 of the 5 were literally just resisted handcuffing. So the officers are doing a very good job of de-escalation, conducting themselves in a professional manner, and getting the job done and only having to resort to a use of force when it's absolutely the last resort.
Fantastic.
I'm going to let Pete Galibert give you some crime stats, and then he and I will answer any questions that anybody has.
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, Pete.
Okay, good. The crime statistics, what I found out that most of the residents, what they're looking for when it comes to property crimes is residential burglaries, auto burglaries, stolen vehicles, and I've also added commercial burglaries and armed robberies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a comparison from May to June. In May, auto burglaries, we had 34. June, we actually went down to only 14. Residential burglaries, in May, we had 6. June, we went up to 10. Stolen vehicles, 43 in May. In June, we went up to 52. Commercial burglaries, in May, we had 15. In June, we had 11. And our commercial robberies, we went from 6 in May to 3 in June. So those are the crime statistics when it comes to property crimes. On the community engagement side, for those of you that attended the Coffee with the Cop this morning, thank you for coming. We had it at the Starbucks. We have a couple of other community engagement events. National Night Out. July 26th is the deadline to register, and National Night Out is in August 2nd. So I put a link on our newsletter and also a link on our website that you could register. And July 26th is the deadline for any of your associations, HOAs that are interested in having officers to attend your meeting. And we'd be happy to do that. We also have next week, it's called Tacos with the Cop. Walgreens management decided to get a hold of me, and they said, we'd like to sponsor Tacos with the Cop and invite the community, and we will furnish the tacos. So July 28th, which is on a Thursday, 12 noon, at the Walgreens at 3400 Coors, which is at Coors and Quail. We will be there. We invite the community, and we will be having tacos and conversation with the cop. And then the other event we have, which is July 30th, and that's on a Saturday. Dion Pizza got a hold of Commander Saladin. So they wanted to have pizza with the cop. So they're inviting the community. So July 30th, Saturday at 10:30 a.m. It's going to be the Dion Pizza located at 4200 Montano and Coors. So anyone also, you could attend the Pizza with a Cop at Dion's Pizza. So those are the community events engagement we're having. And we look forward to seeing some of you in the National Night Out. That's a busy event for us. I know in the past, we've averaged 15 to 20 invitations from various neighborhood associations and HOAs.
If I could just add one more thing as it pertains to our personnel, our proactive response team is really the tip of the spear when it comes to proactive police work. All the officers do an amazing job, but they really do have a huge call volume for the number of officers we have. So the proactive response team really handles the community issues and the business issues very well. And our sergeant was gone for the last 3 months with the National Guard fighting fires up north. And he is back as of last week. And he's already making a difference since he's been back. He was down to 2 proactive response team officers, and one of them made the promotional list, and he will be a sergeant. So which is great for him, but we're losing an officer. I spoke with the deputy chief, and just today we were able to open 2 new positions for the proactive response team. So we back up to a sergeant and 3 officers. We'd like to have 4. That's ideal, but 3 is more than we've had in quite a while. So that's just that much more, or so many more resources with these officers and that sergeant back. But with that, any questions at all from the community or from the board?
Tommy has a question.
Pete, can you tell me where most of these car thefts are taking place? Is it like the mall, or are they happening in front of people's houses?
Tommy, can you repeat that? You've got background noise there. Can you repeat that, please?
I'm closer, Pete. This is Jeff. I'll relay for him. He wants to know, is there any specific location on the auto thefts? Or is it like a targeted area such as the mall or, a certain neighborhood? Or is it just Northwest in general?
When it comes to auto burglary, what I'm seeing on the calls for service and the crime mapping is through Northwest. I know there's a little bit more when it comes to auto burglaries, when it comes to apartment complex. And with auto burglaries, the highest week that we're seeing for the month of June is on weekends. Now, for stolen vehicles, the same thing, residential areas and also apartment complex. And for stolen vehicles, the highest week for the month of June was Sunday.
Any specific area, Pete? I think is more what Tom wanted to know.
No, it's throughout the Northwest Area Command. It's not one area. Other one is talks about being specific. The departments around the Northwest, we're seeing that also, but it's throughout the Northwest area, not one particular area.
Okay, so that leads to another question is, has the bait car program been being utilized in the Northwest? It's been a while since I have seen a sign saying caution bait car in the area.
And I can answer that, sir. And the answer is yes. We work with auto theft quite a bit, and there is a waiting list to get bait cars, but they do get to us quite often. I haven't seen them utilize the sign in quite a while, but they are putting bait cars out there, and it's both bait cars for stolen vehicles and auto burglaries. So they utilize them for both of those aspects. Now, when I was an impact sergeant, we actually had our own bait program where we could put out bait cars on our own, kind of under the guidance of auto theft. And that's something I'm exploring bringing back.
Thank you. Now my question, and you knew it was coming. You reported out 49 officers now in June. We did finally get on up there to 55. What happened, sir?
Promotions is a big one.
Okay.
So they just had a lieutenant's process and they just had a sergeant's process. And that's what kind of knocked our numbers down. That being said, the C&M class is out on OJT right now, and I'm hoping to get some of those officers. And there's a sergeant class out on OJT right now. Like I mentioned, Officer Forsberg left PRT. We lost Officer Bo, who got promoted. He's actually working with Sergeant Poster right now as his training sergeant. So I'm hoping to fill some of our vacant sergeant positions with those on OJT right now.
Okay.
But again, it's beg, borrowing, and stealing because every area command wants them.
I know, but because this is recorded, if the chief listens to it, we need more people in the largest geographical area of his city. Okay?
That we are.
Right. So, I hope we get it. That's
So
what.
Did you have a question, Jackie?
I do. I had occasion a day this week to be on Universe Boulevard between Ellison and Paseo del Norte. And I was behind an Amazon tractor trailer, 40-foot tractor trailer. And he was doing 55. The speed on that road is 35. I'm wondering if they're taking that as a shortcut because there's another portion of Universe that's closed off for construction, or is that the usual route? And if it is that the only instance? And I disclaim any responsibility for clocking.
I don't want to know how you knew how fast he was going. Now, I can't say what their routes are. I really can't. But if you see something like that and you can get a truck number, and even if
I have a picture of it. He stopped at a red light.
Perfect. You can shoot me that information. I can get that out to Amazon and address it in that manner and let them know.
Good. I told them I would report it to you all. I made a formal complaint with them.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. And that's another route. You can go through us or you can go directly to Amazon. I mean, they put the numbers on the trucks for a reason. They want to know how their drivers are driving because that's a representation of their company.
Yeah, I just thought it was, I mean, there's a school and a park
Mm-hmm.
on that 35-mile-an-hour road, and
Oh.
that's crazy.
My daughter drives that route. She's a Volcano Vista student, so I know exactly what you mean.
Okay, I'll get it to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have any questions from the audience?
Any
User?
questions, concerns while we have the lieutenant
I have one question.
or the
It's
commander?
not exactly crime, but We did a west side traffic study last September, and they went through our neighborhood and designated a lot of areas where there are problems that could be fixed or averted somewhat by putting in roundabouts or turnouts or different types of traffic mitigation numbers. But we've not heard anything back in quite a while about that. I was wondering if you'd heard anything.
I have not, but that's something I can check with Counselor Lewis and Counselor Sanchez on.
Okay.
That's who I was gonna
Yeah.
recommend. Why don't
Thank
you
you.
send an email to your counselor? And in your case, I'm not exactly sure which district you're in, but it's either one of the.
I don't know either. We don't have district lines yet.
Yeah, they may change.
Yeah,
It's either Lewis or Sanchez.
because Dan Lewis will answer you.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, I'm that type of counselor.
Okay, I'll ask him.
And both counselors are very responsive and will get back to you. We work with Counselor Lewis's assistant Giselle quite often on different issues in the northern portion of the Northwest.
APD can just try to drive it a little bit.
Thanks, I wasn't sure who to ask.
No, let
Any
the
other
elected-
questions? Do we have any questions, Kelly, on that?
I've been reading that the chat is disabled here. I don't know how that happens. Let me see if I can figure it out. If you have any questions, put it in question and answer, please.
While he's reading that, I just want to make a general comment. I believe it's 2 or 3 Saturdays ago now, I had the opportunity and the privilege to ride with Albuquerque Police Department in a motorcade. The good part about the motorcade, we were bringing an Albuquerque police officer home from the hospital who got hit, T-boned at an intersection on the northwest within less than a mile from his house, and was hospitalized and is at home rehabilitating. And the teamwork and camaraderie that APD showed to support that young man and his wife, which I actually know him on, Josh is his name to me. He's in the DUI unit, and to help bring him home was great. And if you ever see where someone's asking for a donation for that, you know, if you want to get a hold of this council, we'll validate. I can validate if that's in fact a legitimate donation. Right now, I've already heard it. Unfortunately, everybody's heard about the helicopter crash that took 4 of our public safety servants. I personally knew one of them very well. And there's already some scams going on. So just be careful. You know, there's legitimate people. There's, like for Albuquerque Police Department, you got the Citizens Alumni Association, which they will take a check and make sure that that money that they get in goes helps what the cause is for. So I caution the people on that, but also applaud the fact that that motorcade coming out of the hospital to Josh's house was great. Those who know me know I hang out with what I call the 47 unit. It's the DUI unit. Very, very tight with them. I'm going to go to one of their officers' retirements party on July the 30th. And then on August the 11th, I'm going to have pizza with a cop at midnight, because that's when the checkpoints are. So I'll be out with them like I always have. And if you want to talk about a professional organization, that DUI unit has strong leadership as well. And I
Yes.
always bring this up, because you always hear about the negative of APD and all the, you know, if you watch the news, you hear it more than anything. Do they have work to do? Yes, they do. Does any police agency have work that they need to do? You're damn right they do. I can't find a perfect corporation in America. If it would be, I don't think our inflation would be as bad. But there's my spiel, and thank you and your team, and Lieutenant, I thank you and your team. All right, sir.
I appreciate the support. And by just one last thing, I attend these community events, and whether it be there or on your own, recruit for this event. Karen was there recruiting this morning. I saw her. So the more people we get involved, the better. And even if we attract a naysayer, I welcome the conversation.
Me too.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions for the commander? No? All right, we're going to move on. Tonight, we have a special speaker from the city of Albuquerque, Tonya Convington. She is Rapid Accountability Diversion Program, RAD, and will speak tonight about her work mediating disputes with students and youthful low-level offenders. She works to eliminate the pipeline from first offense to long prison sentences and the retaliatory effects of crime that often stem from low-level criminal activity. Tonya, welcome. You have the floor. Unmute yourself. There you go.
Hello, would you like me to start now?
Yes, please.
Okay, let me say that the RAD program is no longer active. I'm the Restorative Justice Coordinator for the city of Albuquerque. But I have spent a lot of time working with young people. As a matter of fact, I'm in the middle of a class right now with a group of young people who are learning restorative justice so that they'll be able to use it in their own schools and communities. So are there questions that people wanted to ask, or do you want me to just tell you a little bit about the work that I'm doing?
I'd say go ahead and tell us.
Yeah,
about
go right
the work
ahead,
you're
Jeff.
doing. Define it.
All right, I've been doing mediation, anti-racism work, and restorative justice for about 35 years, and was doing it specifically for the juvenile justice system. One of the things that most people don't realize in Albuquerque is that in every mid-school and high school in Albuquerque, there is a police officer who is in the school, either an APD officer or a school resource officer. What happens is whenever a kid in a school commits some sort of infraction, no matter how small or how big, instead of being sent to the principal's office like they used to be in my day, they are sent to the school resource officer or the cop in the school. They are required, and all of this is discretionary, but they are required to write up a police report for every child. By law, every police report on anyone under the age of 18 automatically goes to juvenile probation. Juvenile probation then makes the determination whether or not the offense was grievous enough that they'll kick it up to the district attorney's office, or whether the student will be allowed to go to a diversion program. And I used to run one of the only diversion programs in the state of New Mexico, at least northern New Mexico, until CYFD decided to take the funding away. I'm now trying to do similar things through the city of Albuquerque. One of my biggest pushes is trying to get restorative justice into every school in Albuquerque, because I feel everyone is worried and upset about crime. But what we really need to do if we want to make a difference in crime is we have to look at where it really starts. We need to be doing as much prevention or more as we're doing reaction. And I feel that if we start with young people in schools, that's a very good place to start. One of the things that I certainly know from dealing with young people for years at a time is that it's really irresponsible for us as adults to hold them responsible for things that they've never been taught. And I've had many a young person tell me at the end of my class, I didn't know I could do anything other than hit somebody, because that's all anybody in my family ever does. I didn't know that there was something else I could do. And so they're very grateful that we've given them an alternative, that we've showed them there is another way to resolve your disputes. And I feel like that is what we need to be doing. And if we did that, we certainly wouldn't need a police officer in every class, in every school, because the kids would then be able to police themselves.
We have a
Anything?
question really quickly. What is restorative justice? Can you define that for us, Tonya?
Yes, restorative justice is conflict resolution, or I like to say conflict resolution with an emphasis on healing. It's showing people how to sit down, talk to each other, resolve conflicts in a civilized, non-violent way. It gives people a second chance. We find that an awful lot of kids, especially kids of color, are expelled or kicked out of school or whatever for doing the same silly things that we did when we were in school. Only now, then they're put into the system, and that starts them off on the school to prison pipeline. Restorative justice is another way of doing things. And I feel like that if you're not teaching alternatives, if, you know, the only thing a child ever sees are people with guns, or people on TV shooting each other, people, you know, being violent with each other, if that's all they ever see, that's all they ever know. And so we've got to teach them some alternatives.
We have a question?
Yes, now that RAD is no longer an operating program, what do we have for our schools, for our charter schools and some of the other private schools, for those individuals working there to get those resources to reach out to?
Well, we have a city community restorative justice center that's located at the Albuquerque Center for Peace and Justice. And one of the things that I am trying to do, I'm working with several people from charter schools and community schools. We're trying to come into the school and actually teach the students as well as the teachers how to do restorative justice so that they can handle things right there within the school without them having to go to other places. And we're hoping that we can get more support from APS in doing that. We've got a lot of interest from teachers. Edward?
I would like to get a phone number or a POC of who we could contact so we can get to this. I do have family members that are administrators through the charter schools here in the West Side that would love this kind of information and have somebody come and visit.
You can certainly contact me. One of the wonderful things is that we are lucky enough to have a mayor who believes in this, and that's why I was appointed to this position. And because I work for the city of Albuquerque, that's your tax dollars at work, I can go into any school that will allow me and do this for free.
Can you put your number in the chat down there and we'll write it?
I certainly will.
He's right here in person.
And all of these meetings are recorded, so
Right.
we can go back and look at them anytime.
And what else?
We have a question from Mr. Butler.
Yes, the idea of restorative justice really sounds real good because, youth today seem to be very troubled in many respects throughout the nation. And I wonder, if I were a teacher in one of these schools, because a lot of these, quote, children are adult size and sometimes bigger than the teacher. If the person strikes a teacher, so you could say the child is the victim because they don't know any better than to hit, but the teacher suffers first real trauma there. I'm just wondering, can you give me an example of what the resolution and how, quote, the teacher would play a part in that resolution without being pressured by, say, the administration to come up with a certain solution?
First of all, nobody ever gets pressured in restorative justice. Everyone has to participate voluntarily. So if the teacher didn't want to participate, they don't have to participate. If the teacher is interested, then either the teacher and the student would sit down and talk, or they could do it with a third person. If a child has done something that is very egregious, like hit a teacher, then usually other discipline would take over. They might be put on in-school suspension or something like that. Restorative justice isn't the end-all be-all, and it isn't the only method that schools have to be able to handle problems. It's an alternative. But what we find is that when we start using restorative justice in schools, one of the first things that we do, one of the first ways that it's used is to have what we call circles. And they usually start off with the community circle in each class several times a week, where we go around and just sort of talk to kids, and more importantly, listen to kids. So they have the opportunity to say when they're not feeling good, when something is wrong, or what have you. A kid can say, you know, I'm really not feeling good today because my grandmother died last night. And what we find is that when kids, then that gives the other kids the opportunity to say, you know what, I know how that feels, or, you know, we'll take special care of you. What we find with kids is that if they're not taught how to talk about their emotions and given an outlet to talk about things that bother them, then what they do is they act out. Rather than saying, you know, I need some special attention, they pick up a brick and throw it through a window. And then we want to jump on them for breaking the window, but we don't take the time to find out what made them pick up the brick in the first place. And when we find that over and over, and this is used in an awful lot of schools all around the country, that when kids are given that opportunity to do that, there is tremendous less violence in schools, because kids don't have to act out, because they've had the opportunity to talk about whatever's going on with them.
Okay, Tonya, given your work with RAD before and with restorative justice now, what are some of the numbers on how your program is working?
Well, right now, we're really just sort of getting started and trying to do things within the schools. We're also just starting off with our new community restorative justice center. Anybody from neighborhood associations or people who live in communities, if you're having problems with your children, if you're having problems with your neighbor, all you have to do is call me or call the Peace Center and tell them that you'd like to have a mediation or a restorative justice session, and we will sit down and do it. When we were doing the regular programs with the young people, one of the things that we know is that putting young people in jail is a really bad idea. It does not do at all what most people think that it does. And we know that anybody who goes to jail has a 40 to 60% chance of going to jail a second time. That's what the recidivism is. When we were doing the programs with young kids, nationally with kids, the recidivism rate is 9. In Albuquerque, our recidivism rate was 7. So we can definitely prove that going through restorative justice keeps people out of jail. A lot of people think that it's easy or that it's a lightweight thing, but I can tell you, and kids have told me, it's really hard when you have to sit down and look somebody in the face and admit that you did something, take responsibility and apologize, and then listen to them tell you how what you did affected them, their family, and their community. That's difficult, and it makes a difference.
And what is the recidivism rate for youthful people arrested without this program?
If people are arrested and put in jail, it's 40 to 60% chance that they'll go back a second time. If they go to restorative justice, then it's very, very low. It's usually about 10% or less.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions?
Jackie,
Online?
did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
All right.
Anyone else?
Rachel,
Hi, Tonya. How are you doing?
good. How are you
Good.
doing, Rachel? Rachel is another one of those great mediators who helps out.
So, Tonya, I wondered if you might not mind talking about Wings, because I know Wings is working with our youth and they have a program that I thought that you were involved with, that where if there's a youthful offense and they go through 4 or 5 of the classes that Wings offers, then the sentence that they receive from the youth court is reduced.
That program is no longer going. That's the program that I used to run through a counseling center. I'm just getting together with Wings next month to talk about how we can coordinate doing that. But that was a great program, and we had buy-in from all of the children's court judges. They would send us some of their cases. And so, yes, we did have an agreement with them that anybody who successfully completed my 4 classes, that their records would be sealed if they didn't get in any more trouble by the age of 18. So that would keep them from not being able to apply for student loans or go to the military.
Excellent work, Tonya. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. Any other questions for Tonya? We really appreciate you coming tonight. It's very important work you're doing. Thank you so
Great.
much.
I put my information in the chat. Please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. And I'm more than happy to come and speak to organizations and explain to them more in depth what restorative justice is and how it looks. And as I said, we're really trying to get teachers and the school administration, as well as the police, to understand that restorative justice can certainly be helpful in reducing crime.
We have one more quick question from the audience.
Okay.
Do you also have any bilingual individuals working there?
I always have access, yes, to people who are bilingual.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Well, thanks again for coming tonight. What a great segue talking about Wings to our next speaker, who's Franklin Shargo. Did I say that right? Yeah.
Close enough.
He stopped by tonight to talk about his new book, which is called Preventing School Violence, a User's Guide. He's going to educate us a little bit about the major causes of school violence, practical steps to stem it, and why the city of Albuquerque and the state of New Mexico might be at risk in the near future. He's a published author, motivational speaker, trainer, lifelong educator, and a world traveler. And he's passionate about what he does, his work on dropout prevention, school leadership, and working with at-risk learners. And he's known worldwide. He's also our new chairman of the Wings board, right?
No, member.
Member of the Wings board. I'm gonna make him chairman yet.
That was a great introduction. You had a
That
lot
was a
to live
great
up to.
introduction. How many of
Welcome.
how many of you have children or grandchildren? The first, as you can hear from my voice, I come from New York. I go back to New York to renew my accent and get a decent bagel. Because
What accent? Says Tony.
yes, in New York City, I was a classroom teacher, high school classroom teacher, became school counselor, and ultimately an assistant principal. Most new teachers in New York City start in Harlem. I started at Benjamin Franklin High School, where there were 400 entering freshmen and 12 graduates. Yes. I went into the military during Vietnam, came out, the Board of Education rewarded me by sending me to one of the best high schools in New York City. Chuck Schumer went to that school. Ruth Bader Ginsburg went to that school. The school was predominantly Italian and Jewish. And then the Board of Education, in its infinite wisdom, integrated the school. And we had a student shot and killed before it became the rigor of the time. My job at the time was coordinator of student activities, so I had to deal with the media and the press. I got a phone call from a principal. He said, Franklin, I've been reading about what you've been doing. I'd like you to transfer to my school. I said, at the time, there were 1,200 plus schools in New York, 172 high schools. I don't know anything about this school. He said, I'll make it very quick. It's a minority school, high dropout rate. And I'm the 14th principal in 10 years. Yes, so I gave him a list of conditions. He agreed to the conditions. And I transferred to the school. And we had a student shot and paralyzed by an intruder, even though we had a metal detector and we had 3 security officers. At that point, for me, it became a major problem of how do you prevent school violence as opposed to reacting to school violence? Because schools are basically very reactive. The complaints we've had about Uvalde are because of the reaction. We need to get ahead of the curve. We need to prevent, not react to school violence. And that becomes the problem. So the first question, as I moved into New Mexico, and by the way, invited here by 2 governors to come here because of what I had done in New York, was the first question people who move into this city ask are, how good are your schools? Well, when I moved here, we were 46th lowest performing. We're now 50th. We are now, the only advantage of being 50th is we can't get any lower until Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. become states. That's a major problem. The new question that's, according to my friends in the real estate business, are how safe are your schools? And that becomes an increasing problem. This year already in the city of Albuquerque, we have had 3 students shot and killed. And so I've just come back from presenting and meeting with the FBI. This is an FBI report. Let me read to you. In 2021, the FBI designated 61 school shootings as active shooter incidents. 103 people were killed and 140 were wounded. The number of active shooter incidents identified in 2021 represents a 52.5% increase from 2020 and a 96.8% increase from 2017. The research, and I'm basically a researcher, the research done for this book, I am not here selling this book. The research done for that book and the conversation I've had with the FBI in Savannah and Atlanta and in Florida is that the school year 2023 will be far more violent than the past 10 years. Question is, what do we have to do to stop it? The book provides some answers. Let me give you some suggestions. Number 1, nobody should be allowed in any schools in the state of New Mexico unless they are coming into the school with clear plastic book bags. It will not stop all weapons from coming into the school, but it will cut down. I'm very proud of the fact my son, oldest son, gave me this information. Texas has now adopted the rule. Fort Worth, Dallas are now, most of Texas now insists nobody comes into the school, adult or child, unless they have clear plastic book bags. Not bulletproof bags, but clear plastic book bags. What other suggestions can we deal with? Number one, we need the question we're having with Uvalde, and I'm reading the Uvalde report, which is an indictment. The question with Uvalde is Uvalde became a reactive law enforcement. If we think about schools, schools are reactive. A child misbehaves, we take some action. We just heard. A child is a truant, we take some action. A child is disruptive, we take some action. We need to get ahead of the curve. In the United States, we have now spent $108 billion, that's with a B, dollars for law enforcement in schools. And I'm not saying they're not essential, that they are. We need protection, but we do not have enough school counselors. We do not have enough school psychologists. We do not have enough school nurses. The school nurse here in the city of Albuquerque sent me an email. She is a school nurse in 4 different schools, 19 minutes apart. So if a child falls and breaks an arm, if a child falls and starts bleeding, that school nurse will not get to that child in time. We need to have more school nurses. We need to have more proactive things than reactive things. We also need to stop crime. Who should be held accountable for crime like the Uvalde situation? Right? Who's the criminal? I absolutely agree. The killer, by the way, the FBI does not identify the killer by name, nor do they show pictures. It's the media that does. Because many of the killers want the notoriety for being killers. So what we need to do, I believe, and this is controversial, everyone who has a weapon, I have weapons, should have those weapons locked up. My weapons are locked up in a safe, in a gun safe. Now, in some cases, we cannot have gun safes because apartments are too small or there's not enough room. But there are trigger locks. According to what Amazon says, we have trigger locks that you can buy 4 trigger locks on Amazon for $36. My belief is anyone who has not locked up a gun, either in a gun safe or with a trigger lock, and that gun is used to kill someone, the parent should be held accountable for that. And that parent should be arrested for murder. That is critical. We don't need new legislation. We don't need the politicians involved with that. We simply need to create a law saying parents are responsible because the Uvalde killer went to his father, even though he had been kicked out of the house. He was driving his grandmother's truck after he shot her in the head. He went to his father and said, I want a gun. He was too young to buy it when he originally went. And the father says, I'll get it for you as a birthday present. That's in the Uvalde report. And what are you going to do with the gun? And the killer said, I'm going to kill people. And the father got him a gun in spite of it. So yes, is the killer physically pulling the trigger? Absolutely. But the father knew it was going to happen. In another state, which I'm not even sure, the school found a student with a loaded gun. That's a violation of federal law. Parents were called to the school And the parents were told, we found your son with a loaded gun. We want you to take him home. And the parents said no. And so he remained in school. The gun was taken away, but he remained in school. Parents should be held accountable for the actions of children who are at a certain age no longer children. That's my opinion. I gave Kelly a list of questions. If we can go through these questions, Kelly, are they online?
Absolutely. We'll see what it came up with. We had 8 people answer.
Okay. Our schools,
We have them.
We got a couple more here also. Okay, should we just ask?
are schools safer or more dangerous than they have been in the past? How many of you think safer?
Say safer.
How many of you think more dangerous? They're more dangerous, but COVID has added to that danger.
Yes.
Make no mistake. This is a trick question. The drug of choice in schools is,
Marijuana.
it used to be, it's now beer.
Beer?
Why beer?
And you did not have beer on your choices. That was my mistake. But nobody.
But I
was
know
picking-
alcohol is a major contributor in easier access.
Right, beer is very inexpensive and easy to obtain. And so beer is the drug of choice. It's not fentanyl. The media loves to play this up. But beer is the answer. The number one cause of male youth death in the United States? Yes, sir.
Be suicide?
Yes, it used to be automobile accidents, and that was 2 years ago. But life is changing. It went from automobile accidents, it then went to murder became number one. Now it's suicide. Suicide, and the question is why? And there's a special section in the book, which I am very proud of, and I'm getting speaking engagements across the country. The section is called Anxiety, Stress, and Trauma. Our children, thanks to COVID, are having anxiety, stress, and trauma, but so are parents and so are educators. You know this, I know this, in the city of Albuquerque, we have students who are not coming back to school because they're afraid. We have educators not coming back to school because they're afraid. In the state of New Mexico, we have 1,700 uncovered classes before school's open. What we cannot find is we cannot find foreign language teachers and we cannot find special ed teachers anywhere. More importantly, we can't find substitute teachers anywhere. But we're not, I hate to tell you, I used to be a counselor. We're not looking for counselors.
Putting everybody in the classroom.
Everyone is looking. According to the,
Counselors are going in the classroom.
so the number, what's the number one cause of male death? What's the number one cause of female death?
Be the same.
Suicide.
Suicide. More females attempt suicide, 4 times more females attempt suicide, males. However, males are far more successful. Why? What method do males use? Guns. And guns are much more effective than the way females commit suicide, which is either strangulation or poison. What percentage of violence against young people takes place in schools?
I'd say less than 1.
I said
5%.
5%.
Listen to television. What percentage of violence takes place in school?
50%.
If not more. More teenagers and young adults die from suicide than from cancer, heart disease, AIDS, birth defects, stroke, pneumonia, influenza, and chronic lung diseases combined. True or false? True. It's got to, again, the media, social media does not promote that. What percentage of American teenagers send nude pictures of themselves electronically? Less than 10%.
Really?
Yes, the media, social media says it's much more. We've gone over the 7 o'clock. You want to have them ask questions? I'm willing to do that.
Right. Oh, we've got plenty of time.
Time if you have more.
Franklin has a lot more questions in his book. Yeah, I put the website up on the chat there, and you can order it through Amazon if you'd like. You can throw a few more questions out at us if you'd like. They're very interesting, and people have no idea what's going on in the schools today.
We have a couple on the Q&A.
Right.
I gave you a list of, I gave you 10 questions for each of the topics.
Right.
By the way, anxiety, stress, and trauma. Before the book was published, I sent it, was anxiety, stress, and trauma to two of my psychologist friends. He said, I don't know enough about this. Please review this. And I had said, and it's in the book, what I call child anxiety, stress, and trauma should be called child PTSD because the symptoms are identical. And my two psychologist friends said, you're absolutely right. We didn't even think about it. So we have children who are going through, by the way, highest ages for youth suicide. Fastest growing ages for youth suicide in this country. Fastest growing. Number one cause is suicide. Fastest growing, what age?
14.
That's the top level. It's 8 to 14. 8-year-old children are committing suicide at a faster rate. We, as a country, we have got severe problems and we don't even think about it. And again, schools react to situations. We didn't allow it in Uvalde, the police, the law enforcement to react to this. We've got to get ahead of the curve and stop this from happening. We have to prevent it.
Jack Lyons has a comment in question and answer. He says, Representative Pamela, Jack Lyons of the NAACP in Rio Rancho. I always make that mistake, but Representative Pamela Herndon attempted to pass the exact legislation this year, and it was shut down. There will be a meeting on House Bill 9 in Santa Fe, room 122 at 1:00 p.m. on Tuesday, July 26th. Was that regarding clear backpacks, Jack? You can put that in the chat if you'd like. There were so many topics going back and forth, I kind of missed it, but.
July what?
July 26th, 1:00 p.m. in Santa Fe, room 122.
It was already happened.
No.
July 26th,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
next
the other
week.
one, next week.
Yeah, okay. You had a question or comment, Ed? Edward?
Yes, I kind of missed that first point that the speaker said that every school should enforce. What could you say that again? That first thing that was, I guess, the foundation of this?
Yes, every school should require students to have clear plastic book bags, backpacks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, it's a big business in this country, big business to have bulletproof book bags. But bulletproof book bags, I mean, I don't know, I was in the military. The AK-47s, the AR-14s and 50s, those bullets are unlike the bullets that you see in the movies. Those bullets, in the movies, the bullets go like this. AK bullets and AR bullets go like this. They tumble. They were not designed to kill. They were designed to maim. One, in the Uvalde report, one father said, I picked up my daughter's body and she did not have a stomach. So the reason that the Uvalde, Texas police asked parents to bring DNA records were because parents couldn't identify the bodies of their children.
There's a comment in the chat that says, it's from Steve Loeffler to everyone, says, clear backpacks provide a false sense of security. They're worthless for safety. A weapon can be hidden in a piece of fabric and a hollowed out book, for example.
Yep.
Absolutely correct, but it's less likely to be in a clear plastic book bag. A book bag that has pictures of cartoon characters are much less prone to being. Also, the belief that bulletproof book bags are going to stop bullets. Not gonna happen. By the way, let's go also though, the FBI's work. This book was written by the woman who is since retired, who developed the FBI school shooter report.
It's called Stop the Killing. For
Stop the
anyone who
killing.
can't
She's
see
now
it.
retired. I attempted to take active shooting, active FBI shooting, and was told, no, we don't give it to civilians. We only give it to law enforcement, which to me makes no sense. The FBI says that what needs to be done is three things. The first thing is children need to run from the building as far away as possible. The second thing that needs to be done is children need to hide, with the exception of Sandy Hook. Sandy Hook, you had an intruder come in and the intruder was not stopped. Most of the overwhelming number of killings are caused by either students, former students, or students in other schools. So if we're teaching these students, our children, to hide underneath the desk, when I was young, in order to stop atomic bombs, we were told to duck and cover, to hide underneath a wooden desk that would stop an atomic bomb, just as what is now being told to children.
And those are well-made desks back then.
Yes.
also.
But, so it should be run as far away from the school, hide, don't hide behind those walls, hide between, away at brick walls. And the third thing that should be done is to fight. And the FBI has now suggested in my conversations that every classroom in the country should have metal fire extinguishers. I've got an email from somebody suggesting that every child in every school bring a can of beans into the school to throw it at the killers. So what do schools believe? Do they believe in run? No. Do they believe in hide? Yes, but that's their first priority. Children should hide underneath the desk, and that's why law enforcement is finding dead bodies under desks. They should be running, as illogical as that sounds. And we need to, that's again, a very reactive way of dealing with this, not a proactive.
Mr. Lyons says he was talking about a bill where firearms must be secured by Representative Pamela Herndon. If not, and a child causes parent's weapon to cause death or serious injury, the parent could be arrested for a felony fourth degree. So that is a bill being considered right now and was shut down in the most recent session.
And yes, but that becomes our responsibility. We are electing these people to office. In the state of Michigan, after, I don't recall any shooting that took place in the state of Michigan, parents were being held responsible and arrested for terrorism. And in the, again, it's from this book, parents were arrested and sentenced to jail for 15 years for supplying weapons to their children, not for murder, for acts of terrorism.
So is there legislation out there to prevent suicide or to help focus on child suicide?
Is there legislation? I don't know of legislation. I do
It seems
know.
like we're so focused on, and I don't know what the percentage of school shootings are or mass shootings like that you're
Right.
talking about, but it seems like the percentage is probably likely more higher for suicide.
I do know in America, we have roughly twice as many suicides as homicides for all ages right now. So it's probably near the same amongst young people, I'm guessing.
We're just not doing enough. And again, it's our future that's dying.
Jackie's Cook from our council says, I took the active shooter training from the former agent here in Albuquerque, private contractor. So,
Yes. And I've already spoken to the person here who does active shooting, but this is the person who literally wrote the book
okay.
on active shooting.
Do we have in the Northwest Command Center somebody that would be willing to go to the school and talk to the administration a little bit about safety, preventative, and understanding how and what to do to protect the students as far as gainful entry, the security procedures and all that?
I would.
We would, I'll get your information, but my wife here is a administrator at a local charter school right here on the west side. I want to make sure I get this information to her. If I can get one or two more ideas to present to the school so they see and pass those along.
I am here, one, because of what I did in New York. I reduced the dropout rate in my all minority Title I school from 77% to 2.1%. I sent 77% of our first generation high school graduates to post-secondary schools. I signed business partnerships with major businesses and was told you can't do that because African-American and Hispanic students cannot become electricians and plumbers. And I said, I'll tell you what, supply me with an old test, give me a year. We broke the unions. We broke the New York City Electrical Union. We broke the New York City Carpenters Union, we broke the New York City Plumbers Union, because a year after students got the test, and I became the chair of a major business group called the American Society for Quality. And we had signed in New York City a partnership with Motorola, with Procter and Gamble's, with Colgate-Palmolive. And that's the way I believe we have to do it. We need to sign business partnerships with school systems, because the people who have the most to gain in this city from schools are businesses. So Ed Bales, former vice president and a good friend of mine from Motorola, he said, we will never come back to Albuquerque. You know that Motorola had a presence.
Yes.
He said, because we cannot afford to send our employees' children to your public schools, and we're not paying them enough to send them to the academy. That's a quote. We've got to change that perception of what our schools are about. And that becomes very difficult.
Tom Fleming says, so in New Mexico, a 14-year-old is caught at school with a ghost gun. You could probably go into ghost guns, right? Extra magazines and hollow points, and is not arrested. What's up with that? Was that not taken seriously? I don't know about the case particularly. If there's someone there who knows about this case, please feel free to chime in.
As I indicated before, I moved to Albuquerque by choice. As I indicated, two governors invited me here. I did not know her so. I'm very proud of living here. I don't need to make a living here. I shouldn't say that out loud, should I?
We need you
But we need this city. We need this state. And we need to become very proactive in what we do and how we do it. We need businesses to come into the state, major businesses. We've got Netflix here. We're getting increasing businesses here. We've got the new branch of the United States Armed Forces here. They're coming, but we need employable businesses. And the only way we're going to get that is if our children start performing at grade level. Last comment on this, and then cut me off, because I'm about to say things you're going to have me regret.
We got another 30 minutes. Go ahead and let her rip.
So I spoke to someone who will be unnamed. Let's make up a title. Superintendent of schools. That make believe, it's not. And I said, we have had 3 students die here in Albuquerque. And he said, Franklin, you're wrong. They didn't die in school, they died at school. Now, he not only said it to me, he said it to the Albuquerque Journal. By that, he meant they didn't die within the building. They died in the playgrounds, or they died on the athletic field. They were still children from the city of Albuquerque. I'm sorry, I'm missing something. Somebody please explain it. I guess that's my New York coming back.
And I understand what you're saying, that dying on the school grounds differentiates from a killing to an accident, but the responsibility goes back to the school for the safety of our students, for the education, to bring these children up to speed and to become a positive, active member in our community and move forward to leaderships. And if we don't provide those skills to these students, to these kids at an early age and encourage it all the way to high school and beyond, maybe to college or to trade schools or those that go off and do other entities. But it starts here and it starts at home also, for that parent to be actively involved with their students, with their children, and with their family members.
Thank you. We need that.
Thank you.
We need people like you standing up and saying, I'm not going to vote for you. I am not going to contribute to your campaign. We have that. We need that.
I've lost a lot of friends for my ideas and my way of speaking, but I'm happy because I do believe in my ground, being a prior military for 30 years, coming from New Mexico as a lifelong resident, probably 5 or 6 generations here. I've seen New Mexico and it breaks my heart to see what we have here and what has left us. Rayathon, Intel left, they're starting to come back. We've got these other grand businesses coming in, but we're not bringing in businesses that are helping the community. They're coming in for our tax breaks.
Sure you don't come from New York.
No, sir. But I have been around the world and I have seen third world nations that struggle but do better in taking care of their kids than what we have here in the United States. And it's crushing to see that.
Can you go into ghost guns, what the issue is that is and what they are?
Ghost guns are basically guns that are printed on 3D printers. And what percentage of the guns used in school violence or in violence are ghost guns that are plastic guns that are produced? The advantage of building ghost guns is because there are no serial numbers. And so they're just harder to trace. They're basically made out of a hardened plastic with metal barrels. But they're such a small percentage. You can go onto the street and buy, at least in New York, for less than, I would guess now, $40.
38 special.
38 specials, right? And I'm sure here in New Mexico, the availability of guns it's not ghost guns. I mean, the media has nothing else. My wife and I were discussing early this morning. You will excuse a personal conversation with my wife. I said, you know, when I get up in the morning and turn on the television, there has been a shooting, not necessarily a school shooting. And whoever I turn, whether it's a major network or CNN or Fox News, they say, what we're about to show you is really disgusting. And if you have children in the house, they should be allowed to watch it. And then they show it 4 or 5 or 6 times to make sure you didn't see it the first time. I mean, that should, I mean, you got it, that's just another insanity. But again, their interest is making money.
Absolutely. Do we have any other questions right now from in person or online?
By the way, my email that I think Kelly has put up, if not, it's my name, it should be simple enough, which is franklin@shardell.com. If you need spelling, I'll post it on the web. If you have any questions, I will be glad to answer those questions. I generally post once a week. I've had an accident, did damage to my arm, so I haven't posted. But the discussion I just had about holding parents responsible will be up tomorrow after my doctor's appointment.
So,
And I will be back to one posting every week.
so what are some of the specific issues in New Mexico with school violence and just, you know, schools in general? What are the issues specific to this state?
We are not pushing our students as far as they can be pushed. We should, again, and that part is, again, parents have got to say, take away all electronics at night. Electronics at night are basically used either for bullying or for playing games. Nighttime is for either reading, in my opinion, or for sleeping. But no electronics. That keeps them up at night, they're playing games, and then in the morning, they have difficulty getting up. So part of that responsibility. The other responsibility is we need to insist that our children succeed as far as they can succeed. I do not believe, the country believes, that every child should go to college and university. I think if you start looking at income, there are people, again, I came out of a Voc Tech High School, now called Career Tech. My students in Career Tech are making more money than some of my students who got doctorates. And so we need to have, and we know where the shortages are. We have shortages in the hospitals, not just with doctors. We have shortages with nurses. We have shortages with PAs. We have shortages of, we have shortages up and down with career training. We try to, again, I told you earlier today, the alarm in my house went off 3 times. I said, get an electrician. I said, strike a plate. My wife does not know what a striker plate is. But until you can find a plumber, an electrician, a carpenter in this city, we need to start training people for those professions as well. And they are professions. If you don't believe me, start looking at some of the jobs and we're paying them. So some of the people who go to college do not turn out well. And colleges, as much as, and I used to be a career counselor, colleges prepare students, but require them to take philosophy classes and require them to take physical education. And I understand the reason for that, but they also need to take science and math and the other. So we need to start looking at K through university and look at the requirements for, what does it take to graduate with a high school diploma? What is a high school diploma require now? And that has to be changed. And again, I used to be a school counselor.
Okay. Update on the query from Tom Fleming about the student was at Volcano Vista High apparently, and Commander Saladin says you're correct on the date. The school resource officer partnered with the principal once the tip came in. They located the juvenile and confiscated the weapon. It was not a ghost gun. That's all I can say about the case itself. The juvenile DA chose not to have him booked into the JDC, but he was charged. So.
And if I could add to that, Kelly, with juveniles, they're basically booked until their parents pick them up. And that was so, it wasn't an out of the ordinary case for him not to be taken down to JDC at that time. Again, he was charged though.
Okay, okay. All right. Any other issues, questions, or comments at this point? So if you could change one thing with all your experience in schools within the next 12 months, did you have a hand up? No, okay, what would it be?
My age. If I could change one thing. Do you want my New York answer or you want my New Mexico answer?
We got time for both.
The expectation of our New Mexico students has got to be higher than it is. We need to expect more from our students and their parents. And more importantly, our politicians and our school administrators than we are currently getting. We are paying taxes and we're not getting return on investment.
I went to half my high school in Brooklyn and the other half in Santa Fe, so I can agree. There was quite a difference. So Jackie Cook says, I agree, but you cannot legislate good parenthood. Speaking back to arresting parents for the deeds of their children.
No, I'm not saying we should be arresting parents for the deeds of their children. I am saying arresting parents for the deeds of their parents. If you have a gun and it is not locked up in a gun safe or with a trigger lock, and that gun is used to endanger the lives of other people, then parents have got to be held accountable for that, not just the children. As long as we put the word children as commission of crimes, then I'm not sure we can hold an 11-year-old child any more responsible than a parent of an 11-year-old child that makes that gun available, knowing that that gun is going to be used to commit a crime or to commit violence.
Okay. Renee Horvath says, is there a known profile as to why a shooter comes to a school to shoot students?
Is there a
known profile? Is there a general reason why this happens more often?
Yes. The number one reason that school shootings take place is bullying. Children who are bullied become bullies. The killer in Uvalde, according to the FBI, and they don't know, they're making the assumption because he's dead, that he was en route to the high school. The truck he stole from his grandmother, who he shot in the face when he stole her truck, and then was driving to the high school. They showed me the picture, and its axle broke, and therefore he had to jump out in the elementary school. But if you look at a picture of the street he was driving down, the first thing was the elementary school, then the middle school, and then the high school. And again, he had been bullied at the high school because of his lazy eye and because of his stuttering. Now, they don't know, he's dead, so they can't ask him. But they believe he was en route to the high school.
You know, social media plays a big role in the kids that have been actively bullied and then they retaliate.
Yes.
And we need to do a better system of checking not only just our kids, but an open forum on social media, because these kids do actively seek that out. And then once they see somebody else get away with it, the media allows that second person to say he was identified and he was shown over and over again. It gives him a platform to step up and be the next person to take this role?
We have lots of copycats, and we also have Kelly and the law enforcement people know, we have suicide by law enforcement, suicide by cop. And it's long, and that's why the FBI is not identifying who these killers are. The media is, and because they don't want to glorify, we should be glorifying the victims, not the killers. And that becomes very difficult.
All right, if there are no other questions, next month, we are looking at doing a part 2 to this series, if we can find the guest. Just speaking about from the law enforcement side, a little bit more practical discussion about what is, will, or should happen during an active shooter event at a school. So we're going to have some good topics coming up, and we're hoping you will all join us in the future. Dennis just sent a comment saying, wouldn't banning assault weapons make a huge difference? I'll give you my opinion on this really quickly, in that it would make a huge difference in school shootings, but not in shootings overall, because of our 92 murders this year, I don't think anyone's been killed with an assault weapon. I could be wrong about that, but I cannot remember one offhand.
Second Amendment to the Constitution, I used to teach history. Second Amendment to the Constitution guarantees the freedom to own weapons. Now, that was before AKs and all of that. What it doesn't guarantee is assault weapons. And so we need to stop the weapons of war which are being used to kill. And that becomes, something we can. By the time the police, the law enforcement in Uvalde arrived, it was too late. The killings had already taken place in the first 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I mean, and anyone who knows about AKs or ARs, you're firing 100 rounds in a minute, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is. So we need, those are war weapons. They're not.
Yeah, and the difference with rifles, high-powered rifles, is the bullets traveling much faster, and that's why you have so many deaths with these sort of weapons in mass shooting events. I mean, if you walk in with a 6-shooter or even a 9mm, the bullet travels at a much lower rate of speed and is much less accurate if you're a trained shooter. So.
And I met somebody here who very proudly showed me a picture. He has 247 weapons. I don't know what he needs, 247 weapons.
Jackie says, AR is not an assault weapon. Please educate yourself. My understanding is that an automatic weapon is an assault weapon if you have an automatic fire pin, and if it's not, then it's not technically an assault weapon. But I own guns myself. I'm not a collector, Jackie. It's not that I'm against gun ownership. It's just that we probably need to do a better job in some ways. So, anyway. Okay, so do we have anything else tonight? You want to take us home, Karen?
We have one item of old business that Martisa would like us to address.
Okay.
We have February and March meeting minutes that aren't yet approved. So if we can have a motion to approve those minutes and move on. We have a motion from Jackie.
I'll second the motion. I think I had started in March with the council when we did Zooms when I was first.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say
Yeah,
aye.
say
Aye. So now those can be approved, posted as approved minutes. That's the only old business that I have. If anyone else has any other.
I have, I think, Commander, are you still on, sir?
No,
No,
he
he
just
actually
left.
left.
Sorry.
Oh, he actually left. Peter, are you still on?
It's going well.
He's gone?
Yeah.
Okay, so APD did at one time have an officer named Lee Hockey, who was very knowledgeable on active shooter in schools, because I went to more than one of his classes. And I also went to one of his training classes out at Sandia Prep School. And he actually had a video on it too that he would show to other schools. I think APD still has someone that does that. That would be a very good person to bring into our next one.
Yeah,
Okay.
it would
Okay.
be.
All right, boy, did he ever, Lee Hockey would teach him how to line up by a door, which way the door opens, how to line up, and you grab anything in sight, and when that door opens, you all throw it. It was things of that nature. I personally went through a lot of active shooter training. I'm retired military as well. You know, all these topics here will have everybody's spin on them. But I can tell you this, my last active shooter training that I went through in civilian sector is a big building at Honeywell where I was employed, who's no longer here. They closed down in 2019. But because I've been through so many, the fire extinguisher was my friend. And the guy that was the instructor grabbed my shoulder whenever I was going to, because I was ready to spray, pull the pin, spray, and then hit, and then run. Because that guy's gonna be down. I'll guarantee you, those fire extinguishers will take you down. But I would like to see if APD has somebody that could come on in to educate the public more than just me as a student or me as a observer attending different law enforcement agencies, active shooter training.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of active shooter training that does go on. I don't know how much is being done in the schools anymore. All right, but from a school's perspective, I think in the charter schools, I think if you guys were made known of a resource that does do the active shooter training for schools right now, then that would be an administrative decision by the leadership of that school to bring them in.
And contact Pete,
That's why.
Yeah,
yeah,
So-
contact Pete Gallagher
yeah.
about that, because I just contacted him and had him reach out to the church school across the street. And they're doing active shooter training over there. The city is providing.
And is Tonya still here?
No, she left earlier also, but you can contact me
Yeah.
if you'd like to get her information.
I gave it to
Yeah,
him.
because we are under the umbrella of APS, but we are a charter school.
Right.
So we don't have the security that APS does.
No,
Mhm.
no, you don't.
We
She
don't.
came from a school up in the international zone that was just starting to implement a lot of the safety features, the gates, the double check doors and all that. Prior to a lot of these, I think it was 2 years ago that they started, but now at the new charter school to enhance and to, again, the words he used there, to be ahead and prepare before this happens, to make sure that these students, parents, and administration, teachers, everybody involved are safe prior to any of this happening. What are some of the steps we can take to provide that to them?
You know, when I was back in my auditor days, we talked about 3 different kinds of controls you could put in. Controls can be anything from signing a check to locking a door. We had preventative controls, we have detective controls, and corrective controls. And preventative were always the most expensive controls to put in place, but they're the ones that kept things from happening. And if they did happen, you needed detective controls. You could see that it was going on, like the door being propped open at Uvalde. You needed a corrective control for that, lock the door and tell the teachers to stop smoking outside or whatever they were doing. But yeah, if you think
whatever,
about
know,
controls that way
see
and
if we
about
can't get
ways to
some-
provide
Okay, will do.
I don't
solutions,
know if they do anything.
we can look for those.
I think Jackie has a comment before we allow these people to go home. Jackie?
I posted it in the chat. DeBuck of the Horse Mounted Unit teaches that for Citizens Police Academy.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay,
Yeah, there's, and for those of you, she mentioned the Citizens Police Academy. Albuquerque Police Department has a fantastic Citizens Police Academy. FBI has a fantastic Citizens Academy. The Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department has a fantastic Citizens Academy.
Yes.
The Drug Enforcement Agency, I had the opportunity to go to their very first Citizens Academy. I went to that last year in November and December. That was very eye-opening and very informative, and I'll It's just not the news. It's the Drug Enforcement Agency telling me fentanyl is your best one on the market right now. And Lord, and behold, they busted a house right up here at Taylor Ranch. I witnessed the raid, and as a matter of fact, I turned in the house weeks before I went to that, and they tailed that house for 2 years. So when you think nothing's happening, they're building the case. The guy that they got was manufacturing fentanyl in the rental property in his garage. And the amount of fentanyl and money that they seized, he's going federal charges, and he will spend at least 25 in jail. Right? But it took 2 years. I'm going to tell you that. I first reported it to APD, and then we started watching closer. The next thing you know, they had somewhat of an inclination through everything that was observed that DEA got involved. And it's better when DEA is involved because we take the local government out of it, they go to federal court. But yeah, I'll never forget the morning they raided that. You know, that was something. So a lot, you know, you may have a drug addict down the street, you know, a drug house down the street, and you think nothing's happening. I'm telling you, I personally was involved in that, watching and talking to them. And it took them 2 years to hit the house because they kept on saying, we want more. We know he's doing more. We got to get more. And now they got enough. And that was just last year in October when they busted that house. You know, keep that in mind. Sometimes you think the cops aren't doing nothing, but they're building it. Okay. So, all right.
If there's no other public comments or
Anything
items
else?
to be brought forward, anybody can suggest a topic for a meeting, please be sure to let us know if there's someone you want to hear from in the future. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor? Go home. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Have a good weekend. All right.
Remember, okay, you sent me this. This was a week ago. There's nothing in this to anyone that we are in person.
Well, I did send the agenda. The agenda said,
Yeah, but these invites
okay,
don't say.
I'll
You
change.
need
There
to
were
change.
2 invites. One was for Zoomers and one was for
I didn't
in-person
get
training.
All right.
anything for the in person. All I got was this one.
Yeah, because I got 2.
Yeah, see, that's a Zoom invite.
I know, and that's the only one I got.
I'll put it-
That's why I got confused. I said, I thought we were gonna do this in person. We should have more people.